Hello everybody, this is Tip Top MTG here today with another Ikoria spoiler video. In today's video, I'm going to be covering all of the spoilers that have been spoiled so far today. Now, I'm doing it a little bit earlier in the day because I have to. That means tomorrow there might be a couple that were spoiled late tonight. But hopefully this should be a pretty up-to-date look at all of the cards spoiled today. There's a lot of them, so I just want to jump straight in. Starting off, we have Savi Sabretooth. It's a 2-cost 3/1 cat. That's pretty much it. I can't waste time with these smaller cards, so I might just read them, and then that'll be it going on. Valiant Rescuers, a 2-cost white human soldier 3/1. Whenever you cycle another card for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token, and then it has cycling 2. Again, another card that we're seeing that allows you to do things with your cycling besides having it be a nice addition on other cards. It's interesting, especially for like a draft. Flourishing Fox is a 1-cost 1/1, and whenever you cycle another card, put a +1/+1 counter on, and you can cycle it for 1. This is essentially just a Johnny's Pride mate, but for the cycling mechanic. So if you're running a cycling deck, you are running this card. Tiger's Will, again, any card that has the black background with the white text in front of it like this, that means it was translated. So that means take all of this with like a slight grain of salt. It may have been translated wrong. Tiger's Will, especially the name, is a 2-cost white instant. It says target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's blocking, instead put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And then it has cycling 2. Here we're seeing cycling used as just like a nice little addition, which is kind of cool, not as part of like a real mechanic. Now we have an interesting card, Reigneth Magistrate. Now this is a 2-cost 1/3 creature human wizard, and it says your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. So they can't cast like escape, they can't do adventures. If you're in commander or brawl, they can't cast their commander, assuming that it is in the command zone, not in their hand. You can't cast companions. This is a devastating card, although a counter spell, a kill spell, will kill it. I'm not saying it should be like immediately banned in like Brawl and EDH, but maybe it's something that should be looked into. For instance, Sorcerer's Spyglass was banned in Brawl because you could just shut down your opponent's planeswalkers. So if this can just shut down any commander, that may constitute a ban. Then we have Mythos of Snap decks. This is a cycle, the Mythos cycle. It's a 4-cost white sorcery, and says each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifices the rest. Very typical card. A lot of times it's like each player chooses a creature, then sacrifices the rest, but this does all non-land permanents. Except for artifacts. So yeah, and then it says from among the non-land permanents they control, and then but with the 2 generic, if you pay a black and a red, so if you turn this into black, red, white, white, you instead get to choose those permanents. So you would say, oh, I'm going to choose your weakest creature, your weakest artifact, your weakest enchantment, and your weakest planeswalker. So that's pretty cool. Next, we have Phase Dolphin. It's a 3-cost creature elemental whale, 1/4, and whenever it attacks, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Kind of a devastating effect if there are things that care about on hit triggers, but it itself is not that scary and can be easily stopped. Dreamtail Heroine is a 5-cost 3/4 with mutate, so you can put that on top of or under a non-creature spell, another non-human creature, and you can either have it be the top card, meaning it'll be a blue 3/4 elemental bird, like it'll be this, and then have the abilities of the bottom card, or you can put this on the bottom of a card, and you'll have it'll be the other card, just add this text box. So basically, when you're mutating, if you're mutating and you decide to put it on top, the card that says mutate, it becomes the creature on top and gains the text boxes of all the cards beneath it, like the main text box, and if you put it under, it just gives its text box to the creature above it. Just think about it like that. The card, everything else about the card is ignored, including if it's legendary or not, which is kind of Either way, you can mutate it for 1 less than its actual cost, and whenever this mutates, draw a card. This is a common. I know it costs 4, but that's not that crazy. I mean, like, the card itself is crazy at common. Mutate. They have to mutate these powerful mechanics because you're going to want to trigger these mutate abilities multiple times, which means you want to mutate the same creature multiple times, which means that one kill spell can kill your entire board, so they have to have powerful effects with it, and I get that, but this just seems a little pushed, especially at common. Wingfold Turan It's a 6-cost creature, Dinosaur 3/6, and when it enters the battlefield, or it enters the battlefield with a choice of either flying or hexproof, basically, forever. And I don't like hexproof, but you know what? I like the whole when it enters the battlefield, choose which one you want. It gives you more choice in terms of like, oh, I don't need flying right now. My opponent doesn't play creatures, but they do play removal, so I can put hexproof. Now, this is an awesome. I mean, it's kind of expensive, but it's an awesome choice for a mutate thing. You can have this be a mutate target, and it can have hexproof, which will make it much more powerful. And if you might say, oh, board wipes, but board wipes would have killed all those creatures anyway. So if you can put hexproof on the creature, you're pretty good. Like I could see a mutate deck that uses like Paradise Druid as a good target to mutate onto, and like things with hexproof. So that'll be interesting to see. Keep Safe is a 2-cost instant counter target spell that targets a permanent you control and draw a card. I wish it didn't say draw a card. I think this will definitely see play in blue. At least it'll be in sideboards, but I could see, and especially in Arena, this being played in an Azorius control deck. I hope Ikoria shakes up the meta as much as Theros did, so we can get some new cycle of decks in here, not just expand upon the decks that are already there. Next, we have Boon of the Wishgiver. It's a 6-cost sorcery, draw 4 cards, cycle 1. Nice. If you don't have the mana, cycle it. Cool. Neutralize, 3-cost instant counter target spell, so already better than cancel. And then it has cycling 2, so you can just cycle it if you don't need to counter spell or if you're looking for an answer. We have Reconnaissance Mission. It's a 4-cost enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So here's a card that I was referencing with Phase Dolphin. Where that lets you make unblockable creatures, and then if you don't need to draw the cards, or I guess you do need to draw the cards, but you need it right now, and you don't have any creatures, because you could play this and not have any creatures, and it's a dead card. So if you're losing and you don't have any creatures, you could cycle this to get a creature. So again, cycling is such a great mechanic. Next, we have Archipelagor. It's a 7-cost creature Leviathan, 7/7, with you can mutate it out for 6, and actually it reduces one of the blue mana you have to spend. And then it says whenever this creature mutates, tap up to X target creatures, where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. So when it mutates onto something, it has mutated once. So you'll tap something when you play this, and it won't untap during its creature's next untap step. Now that's kind of expensive, but I'm pretty sure you would mutate this onto another creature and make this the top card, because it is a 7/7. This card actually doesn't seem that powerful for 6. Then we have Voracious. Let me take that back. It does seem powerful for the fact that it is blue and that it is a 6-cost 7/7 that taps something. But you do have to have another creature already. So, I don't know. Voracious Great Shark is a 5-cost creature shark, 5/4, and with flash, and when it enters the battlefield, counter target artifact or creature spells. You know what I love? I love when the set before this had a major theme on casting things at instant speed, and then they start printing more cards that are creatures and counter spells. That just, like, the point of a counter spell is part of it is like when you're playing a very counter spell heavy deck, you don't have the creature, so you have to deal with that. Not that you have a creature that's also a counter spell. This is so infuriating. Now, it does cost a lot, but that is kind of infuriating to see. Next, we have Cavern Whisperer. It's a 5-cost with mutate for 1 less, and menace, and whenever it mutates, each opponent discards a card. That is no joke. For 4, that doesn't seem overpriced, especially saying that you're either going to be buffing up your creature to a 4/4 or giving your creature a menace. And then you're also, every time you're going to mutate that, your opponent's going to discard a card, which can offset the fact that they can use 1 kill spell to kill 2 creatures. Because now, sure, you used 2 cards on that 1 creature, but they also now have to use a kill spell and the card they discarded. So this card actually kind of settles it. Like, I mean, it doesn't completely make it fair, but it's less. They don't gain as much card advantage on you. It might be easier to kill your board than if they were just a bunch of random creatures, but they don't gain any card advantage on you. Next, we have Blood Curdle. It's a 4-cost instant. Destroy target creature. Put a menace counter on a creature you control. So this might be a cycle of like low-cost instants that just do some effect and then also put a counter. So we saw that with a trample counter yesterday. Overall, I like the counters. I hope they become a permanent thing. Next, we have Insatiable Hemophage. It's a 4-cost creature nightmare, and you can mutate it for, guess what, 1 less. And it has Death Touch, so you can give Death Touch to any non-human creature. And it says whenever this mutates, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. So, again, turning mutate into something like so that when you play the card, you get an advantage. That way, if it does get blown up, you don't lose that advantage as much. It's kind of interesting to see this happen right after an aura heavy set. So, yeah. Next, we have Chittering Harvester. It's a 6-cost creature, which guess what? It costs 1 less to mutate, and then whenever this creature mutates, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Again, we're seeing this where it's trying to settle the card disadvantage you're getting by mutating, by making your opponent sacrifice a creature rather than discard a card. Overall, I think it's pretty good for 5. Yeah. Then we have Indestructible Link. I think this is going to be called, like, Impenetrable Bond, because they call them bonders, so the link is probably going to be the word bond, but you know what, it's fine. It's a 5-cost sorcery and says return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a lifelink counter on it, so you can just bring it back, but stronger for 5. Okay. It does say you're not a, which does put it below some other cards, but it's fine. Next, we have Call of the Death Dweller. It's a 3-cost sorcery, and it says return up to 2 target creature cards with total converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a Death Touch counter on each of them, and then put a Menace counter on either of them. So you get to... You could put Death Touch and Menace, or you could put a Death Touch Menace. So that's kind of interesting. Next, we have Mass Extinction. It's a 4-cost sorcery. Choose even or odd. Exile all creatures with converted mana cost of the chosen trait. So if you're using that one commander that makes you cast only even things, you could use this. And then this is a asymmetrical board wipe that exiles. Overall, this is pretty good. Board wipes that are kind of choose a trait can be kind of risky, because if your opponent has 10 things on the battlefield and 5 of them have odd, 5 of them have even, that's generally not very good, although if all the even ones are more powerful, you know, whatever. Just note tokens count as even, so I feel like even's going to be cast more, but yeah, I actually kind of like this card. Next, we have Mythos of Nethroi. It's a 3-cost instant. It says destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature, which may sound weird, or if you spent green and white. So if you pay green, white, black, you can just destroy target non-land permanent, but if you just pay black, you can only destroy a creature, and this is actually a strictly better murder. Now, it is rare, which makes it harder to get, and I think we've had strictly better murders before, and so this isn't something groundbreaking, but even if you're not playing, like, black, even if you're playing mono black, this is better than murder, because it doesn't require double black, although if you're playing mono black, that's not an issue. But whatever. It is technically better than murder. Next, we have Shredded Sails. It's a 2-cost instant red, and it says destroy target artifact, or it deals 4 damage to target creature with flying, or you can cycle it, which I kind of like. It allows you to get rid of artifacts or creatures with flying, but then this feels actually more like a green card at this point, but whatever. But then, if you don't want to like do that, like if your opponent isn't playing flying creatures or artifacts or flying creature artifacts, you can cycle it away, so it's not just a dead card in your hand. Next, we have Clash of the Titans. It's a 5-cost instant. It says target creature fights another target creature. Now, this, at first when I read it, I was like, why is that cost 5? And then I realized it doesn't say target creature you control. So your opponent has a 13/13, and it was like this highly mutated creature, and they also have this Death Touch 10/10 that's also a highly mutated creature. You can just make them fight together and then kill both of them. I actually really like this card. I designed something similar to it in my custom set that I designed, where I was like, oh, target creature fights another target creature, so that's kind of interesting. Next, we have Mythos of Vadrock. Wow, this is really low quality. It's a 4-cost sorcery, and it deals 5 damage as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. So if they have a bunch of 1/1s, you can just kill them all. If they have a 5/5, that works too. It's a little expensive, but if you paid white and blue until your next turn, those permanents can't attack or block, and their activated abilities can't be activated. This is probably one of the weakest ones we've seen. I wouldn't really pay 4 for that ability anyways, so yeah, kind of weak. Next, we have Fertility. It's a 3-cost green creature elemental, and it says that enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters. Pay 2, remove a +1/+1 counter. Target player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it onto the battlefield at tapped, and then shuffles their library. If you can proliferate this, you can just keep getting lands. Also, that doesn't tap it, so if you have 4 mana, technically 7, you can do this twice, which at that point that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I actually really like this card. Early game, you put it out turn 3. The next turn, you may be able to activate it twice if you hit your land drop, and then you're at 6. I actually kind of like this card. And if you don't want to kill it and you have some way to constantly put counters on it, like if you threw it in an Atraxa deck in EDH, you might be able to do something with that. It's kind of interesting. Next we have Wilt. It's a 2-cost instant, destroy target artifact and enchantment, and cycling. Pretty good card. I think I'd rather play Return to Nature, which will destroy target artifact, enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard, because there's a very low chance that a deck revolves around none of those. Like, even if it's just one random aura they have in there, there's a very low chance of that. So the cycling is nice in case they don't have an artifact or enchantment, but I think I'd rather play Return to Nature. Next we have Migration Path. It's a 4-cost sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library, and then cycling 2. Just so you know, these are all standard. This is not Commander. There is one Commander card they've revealed so far, and that's at the end. Okay, this is interesting. More ramp that we're seeing, and I said that there was going to be a lot of ramp in this set, so it makes sense. Next, we have Devouring Bites, a 3-cost sorcery, and this one's kind of weird. It says, as an additional cost, reveal a creature card from your hand. It deals damage to target creature equal to the power of the revealed card. So, instead of it making a creature you own fight or like deal its power equal to it, you know, it does. The green can do that. It does it from your hand. So you could have some like 13/13 in your hand, and now green can just take out any creature for the most part. That doesn't feel very green. I don't like this. I would have preferred if this was like a green-red card, maybe. That might make it like, oh, you get the green from the creatureness and the red from dealing a bunch of damage. So I'm not a huge fan of this card. I feel like a slight bend. Next, we have Monolith Pass. It's a 5-cost sorcery. Target creature gets 7/7/7. Wow. And then target creature must block a Fable this turn. So the idea here is, oh, you even have this 1/1, like you, and then you bump it up to an 8/8, and then say, hey, your really useful utility creature that you're never going to swing with, it has to block this turn. And then you attack, and then it has to block. And now you have a big buff guy. Also, you doesn't say target creature an opponent controls, so if you don't want your opponent's creatures to block for some reason, you can just make one of your own creatures block. I don't know. And then we have cycling 2, so if you don't want to do this, if your opponent's not playing a super big creature deck and you don't need +7/+7, or you know it's going to be counterspelled, you can cycle it. Next, we have Glowstone Recluse. It's a 3-cost creature spider, and this one actually costs 1 more to mutate, and that's because when it mutates, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, so you pay 4 for a 4/5 with a reach. Also, just note, he can give that ability to any non-human creature. Any. Including the Fertility Dad thing, which just makes... Oh, okay. I just don't know how hard it's going to be to make a creature repeatedly mutate. That's the only thing I don't know. Then we have Auspicious Starix. It's a 5-cost 6/6, and it costs 1 more to mutate. And when this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you reveal X permanent cards, where X is the number of times this creature is mutated. Put those onto the battlefield, meaning, you know, hey, you have some, 11 costs from the set, or, oh, hey, you have kalasafication, which we're going to see here in a second. Just throw it on the battlefield. Now, I don't think you get to equip it. That's an aura, but there was some crazy degenerate stuff that you could do. Hey, you're playing Historic, you have Omniscience on top of your deck, right onto the battlefield. Then we have Kalasafication. It's a 7-cost enchantment aura. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and it gets +20/+20. Now, this is kind of interesting. In, Limited, you could enchant your opponent's creature to just tap it, if you're about to win the game. It's kind of interesting. This was referenced by Mark Rosewater as Magic's biggest power toughness increaser in an aura. Pretty cool. Next, we have Kogla, the Titan Ape, and it enters the battlefield. It fights up to 1 target creature you don't control, and whenever it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls, and then pay 2 to return target creature you control to its owner's hand, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. Those are kind of a bunch of random abilities. It reminds me of Questing Beast. So here's the Questing Beast of this set, although it also helps with Green Devotion. Woo. Next, we have Skull Prophet. Yay, we're finally moving to multicolor. There's over 50 cards spoiled today. It is a 2-cost 3/1, and you can tap it for black or green, and you can tap it to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. So Self-Milling Resurrection, this is totally going to go in a deck like that, especially saying black-green is totally going to have a Reanimator deck now, that green is going to be a huge color in this set, because green has all the big creatures, so woo! I mean, there's big creatures in all colors, but green is generally known for having big creatures. Next, we have Channeled Force. It's a 4-cost instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard X card. Target player draws X cards. Channeled Force deals X damage up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. So, you have something that has on-draw triggers. You can just discard your entire hand and then redraw it. And then you get to deal damage. So overall, this card can be crazy. And then you duplicate it with Lutri, who's that otter in the background. But yeah, pretty good. Next, we have Dire Tactics. It's a white and a black, and it says exile target creature. If you don't control a human, you lose life equal to that creature's toughness. So if you're playing a human-based deck, this is a really awesome card. If not, it still can be a pretty good card. If you just need to be able to exile target creature. That includes the gods from Theros and, you know, a lot of different things. Next, we have a Proud Wildbonder. It's a 4-cost red and green creature human warrior 4/3 with trample, and it says creatures you control with trample you may have this creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't block. So you can basically make trample not unblockable, because they could still block it to kill it, but like it doesn't hit the creature, it just hits the opponent. That can be a very powerful effect, especially saying that things with trample generally are pretty big. Next we have Trumpeting Gnar. It's a 3-cost creature beast, 3/3 with mutate for actually 2 more, but it becomes more color, easier to cast, so you could actually play this in a mono blue or mono green deck, and it says whenever this creature mutates, create a 3/3 green beast token, so you can just keep creating lots of tokens. And the reason it costs more to mutate is because then you get to create a 3/3, so woo. Next, we have General's Enforcer. It's a 2-cost black and white creature human soldier, 2/3, and it says legendary humans you control have indestructible. So probably your main part of your deck is probably going to be a legendary human. If you're in Brawl, you'd be able to play this and your commander could gain indestructible. Cool. And then you can pay 4 to exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Pretty good. Next, we have Back for More. It's a 6-cost instant. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is an instant. Keep that in mind. When you do, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So it's a return spell, it's an ambush, and it's a force fight. So that is pretty good for 6. Although, and it's in black and green, which generally can be pretty mid-rangey. Next, we have Labyrinth Raptor. It's a 2-cost black and red creature nightmare dinosaur, 2/2 menace. Whenever a creature you control with menace becomes blocked, defending player sacrifices a creature blocking it. So that's interesting. So it cares about menace, and then you can give creatures with menace +1/+0 until end of turn. I really wish this was legendary. I would totally build a menace deck. Next, we have Primal Empathy. It's a 3-cost blue and green enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. So you're generally just putting a lot of counters on things. Make sure you have the biggest creature, and if you don't, this helps. What I like is that if you're winning the game, it helps you win by letting you draw cards. If you're not winning the game because you don't have the biggest creature, it helps you get the biggest creature. So this card is good whether you're winning or losing. I love the design of this card. Quartz Forest Crusher. It's a 5-cost red and green creature dinosaur beast with trample, and it says whenever 1 or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast token with trample where X is the damage dealt. So if you deal 17 damage through trample, you create a 17/17. Sounds like trample is going to be a mechanic in this set, like a mechanic a lot of things care about, because it's like the second card we've seen today with that. Next, we have Fiend Artisan. This is a mythic, by the way. It's a black, green, so black or green, and it's a 1/1 creature nightmare, and it gets +1/+1 for each card in your graveyard. So this is totally going in a black-green self-mill deck that I talked about with that one creature that like taps and puts 2 cards in from your graveyard or your library into your graveyard, and it says pay X and black or green, tap, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library, activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So this is kind of crazy. You could say, hey, I need a blank at this time. Poof. Now you have it. Now you do have to sacrifice another creature, but like there are lots of ways to get around that. Also, this could be played in a mono black deck. This could also be played in a mono green deck, which is kind of interesting. And it does put it on the battlefield, so that does avoid like additional cost to cast things. So I honestly don't like this card. Next, we have General Kudrow of Reigneth. It's a 3-cost black and white legendary creature human soldier 3/3, and it says other humans you control get +1/+1, so a human lord. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, exile target card from an opponent's graveyard. Again, we're hitting on like escape here. And then we have pay 2, sacrifice 2 humans, destroy a target creature with power 4 or greater. So this is just generally going to be your human commander. That's pretty much all I have to say. It is a mythic. Next, we have Chevel, Bane of Monsters. This is a black and green legendary creature human rogue. Death touch at the beginning of your upkeep. If your opponents control no permanents with bounty counters on them, put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. And whenever an opponent controls whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter and it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. So this is going to encourage you to play lots of removal, and then you get to draw cards whenever you are removing things, which will then draw you more removal. It's a good card. Kind of broken for 2. Death's Oasis, it's a white, black, green enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Woo, more self-mill. Then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, since it's going to your hand, it's a little better, but it costs 3. And now, say you self-mill a whole bunch, right? Oh, you killed my 5 cost, now I have a 4 cost. You killed my 4 cost, now I have a 3 cost. And that's kind of crazy. Especially saying things like Hydras are low mana cost, so a lot of the time you'll be able to get those. Either way, pay 1, sacrifice it, you gain life, you go to the greatest converted mana cost among creatures you control. So if you really need to gain life, you can just ditch this, and yeah. Next, we have a cycle of colorless artifacts. These tap for the 3 colors in a shard and can cycle if you don't need the mana. Cool. Then let's talk about Commander. We have 1 card. Arcane Signet is being reprinted, which is very necessary. The price is way too high, and that's it. That's it for this video, guys. It's only been 25 minutes, about to be 26. They have been spoiling a lot because they have to get through all the cards in Commander and Standard within a week, so woo. So you can expect more content like this tomorrow and the next day and the next day. If you enjoyed, please hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.